Welcome to the Transform Your Wedding podcast, a how-to guide for taking your wedding to a whole new level. Here's your host, Marie Kubin from Rent My Wedding.
Hey guys, today we're talking about eco-friendly weddings. I'll be chatting with Kristen Goslin. She is the owner of KG Events and Design based in Martha's Vineyard. So let's check out all of Kristen's tips and advice about eco-friendly weddings. Hey Kristen, well thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to talk about eco-friendly weddings. This is one of those issues that I think is just so important, but the great thing is it's also becoming a really popular trend among couples.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, we all kind of share a responsibility, especially now, to just consider, with all the decisions that are made during the wedding planning process, what impact each of them have. And I think there's a big kind of misconception that, these beautiful, extravagant, luxury branded weddings, don't always have an environmentally friendly policy or sustainable alternatives, but that's really not the case. I think if you really break it down and look at each each area of the wedding and of the vendor sourcing that's going on, you can really make an impact every step of the way. And I think that a lot of what it really boils down to is a lot of the eco-friendly environmental alternatives in a lot of these areas end up being more quality products, more, hand-dyed, local, sustainable materials, more real materials than fabricated. So it ends up almost, if it's done right, looking just as luxurious as, as if, some of those vendors hadn't been involved. So.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. By going eco-friendly, it doesn't mean that you have to give anything up. You can still have every bit as beautiful of a wedding.
Definitely.
Yeah. So if couples are thinking about having an eco-friendly wedding, where should they start?
Yeah, there's a lot of great resources online now, but I think, if that's a topic that's really important to them, I think doing the research ahead of time, talking to your planner or your venue, and really just raising that question with each vendor that you work with, because it's also something that's evolving as time goes on. So, whether it's 6 months or a year, they find an article online, there might be, either more technology or more options that weren't available when that was written. So I think just letting your vendor team know every step of the way that that's something that's important to you. What are some new ideas, alternatives, other materials that might, might be available that weren't previously. So I think just continuing to, to raise that question as one of their top areas will help them, each step of the way to get what they want. So.
Definitely. And what are some, specific elements of the wedding that you can do differently to make them eco-friendly?
Yeah, so I think starting from, where you're hosting. So deciding how many guests you're bringing in, what the impact is in terms of how many modes of transportation your guests are taking to get there. What is the carbon footprint for that? And then also just looking locally, are you in an area where you have, a number of caterers? Do they source from local farms and fisheries? What type of, compost and other waste management practices do they use? So I think starting from the very beginning of raising that question when you're deciding where and what that impact could be. And then once you decide where and you're starting to figure out your venue, your catering, kind of the bigger pieces, raising that question again to just really understanding, where your food and beverage is coming from, how it's served. And I think that goes along with really understanding your vendor team too. If you're, if you want more sustainable options, you're going to align more with somebody who also values those, right? So I think really just doing, doing the doing the research, asking the questions with your vendors. But I think the big ones, being where, I think the catering piece, and then every single material that's brought in from your linens, tables and chairs, flatware, glassware, all the way down to the type and style of, photography that's shot that day. You can go as far as sourcing, your rings and your attire from sustainable designers as well. So I would say sky's the limit. You can really break down each piece of the wedding day and find options in that way. But I would say the big ones are, where are you having it? How many people are coming in? And what is the impact for that? And then I think the catering piece and where the food and beverage is being sourced from are the big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I love your point too about just asking a lot of questions so you can really make sure you know where everything is coming from, how it's sourced, and make sure that it's all in line with your eco-friendly wedding.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that I kind of think is interesting is, a lot of couples, they're getting decor for their wedding and they might think, I'm going to buy this and then maybe I'll use it later at my home for some decorations, or I'll keep it and my sister can use it for her wedding. But a lot of times I think these couples in reality, after the wedding is over, they have all this stuff and they really don't end up using it. So it either goes in the trash or it gets donated and maybe still ends up in the trash. So one thing I think is really interesting to talk about is just being, realistic about your decor and maybe figuring out what do you actually need to purchase versus what should you rent. Because rentals, I think, are a great way also just to make sure that what you're using is actually going to get recycled. It's going to get used for many more weddings down the road. So what's kind of your advice when it comes to, decor and rentals and making those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, rental, everything from, tent, lighting, tables, chairs. That is a sustainable alternative right off the bat. I would say if you're looking at buying items, for some tabletop items that works well, especially now that we're kind of in the age of like the micro wedding. If you're looking at 15 to 20 place settings or candles for 2 tables, fine. You could definitely work those in to your, to your collection at home. But anything over that, it can be really difficult to source the right amount, to unpack and get them ready, as you know, cleaning them after the event and then storing them. So there's so much more, excuse me, that goes into it aside from just having them there that day. And really the rental costs can be, significantly less than what it would be to purchase, of course. But really, the rental company's there too to make sure that everything is unpacked, packed the right way, transported, any nicks, any issues with the product itself are resolved, cleaned, taken care of. So, but yeah, so again, sky's the limit with that. If there's, for a lot of our couples that are looking, a little bit more on like the trendier side, or there starts to be new pieces that are emerging where they might be the first to buy them. It's also a great option to, if your local rental company or decor company doesn't carry a certain type of lighting or chair, it doesn't hurt to ask. They may have gotten, 4 or 5 requests for that item. So again, before you go out and purchase, it's worth having a conversation with your, planner, your designer, or the rental company to see if they might be interested in either sharing that cost, or they may be, have it on their agenda to buy anyway for that year if it's an up and coming trend or item.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Not only just looking for the rentals, but then asking, because you never know. Not everything is always listed on the website or on the regular rental list. So that's a great idea as well, trying to source those items that you might be looking for and still do it as a rental so that you can be recycling and, lowering your footprint that way.
Totally. And again, to that point, if it is something that you must have, maybe you thought you were going to use it in your home, whether it's lounge furniture or something else, it may be worth, making a connection with the rental company after, saying, hey, would you be interested in this? And just working it into the system and the cycle that way. With everything that we, do bring in from, print work, candles. We have a really, strong policy for obviously no single-use plastics, balloons, things like that. But again, just really looking at how much is being brought in to achieve that final look, and really trying to reduce the amount of reduce as much waste as possible in terms of the packaging, how it's getting there, and what all of that looks like. So
definitely. And any other tips that you have just in general when it comes to eco-friendly weddings?
Any other tips? I would say, again, just ask questions. Really, that can be the really fun part too, to really understand the story of the brands and the businesses that you're partnering with for your wedding. There's a lot that you can find out along the way that will, I think, ultimately just make your relationship with that, with that business, with that vendor stronger. And I think both you as a couple and the service provider feel good ultimately about, coming up with more sustainable options for your wedding day. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. So, Kristen, tell us more about you and your company.
Yeah, so we started in 2014. We're based here on Martha's Vineyard, which is in the Northeast, on the island of Martha's Vineyard. And we specialize in destination events, corporate, private, as well as weddings and social events. So we have a team of 4 in the office year-round here. And yeah, recently I got my master's degree in meeting and event management from San Diego State University. And it's actually the first master's program in North America, specifically for our industry. So that was really exciting. Just graduated in December. And sustainability is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. It's something I've studied when I was out in San Diego about 10 years ago, and something that we can, all be continuously working on and really making little changes. It's not, it's not all going to happen overnight and in one day, but little choices along the way, either with your clients or in your office and your workspace, can make a big difference in the long term. So,
absolutely. Now, how can everyone get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website is kgeventsdesign.com, and all of our handles are that same KG Events Design on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So.
Awesome. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed hearing all of your tips about eco-friendly weddings. And we're going to put this on our website as well so everyone can find out more and get links right to your website. So thank you again for being a guest on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie.
Well, I hope you enjoyed all of these tips about eco-friendly weddings. And don't forget, you can catch all of our podcast episodes over at transformyourwedding.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Rent My Wedding, your one-stop shop for event rentals. Order online and rentals are delivered right to your door. Shipping is free both ways nationwide. Rent lighting, backdrops, photo booths, and more. With the most 5-star reviews in the industry, Rent My Wedding makes rentals easy and affordable. Book your rentals today at www.rentmywedding.com.